Well, thank you everyone for joining us for Adjusting to Life After Brain Injury. It's a workshop that is really designed for people in the early stages of injury between 1 and 5 years, but may be relevant to others as well. This quote is kind of describes what it may be like adjusting to really anything, but definitely after having sustained a brain injury, or if you're the caregiver of someone who has sustained a brain injury. So I'm going to start by talking about some of the unexpected changes. There are definitely many things that can be impacted by injury to the brain. And some of them are physical, and you may be very familiar with these: balance issues, sensitivity to light and sound, challenges with double vision and other vision challenges, and just being able to get around the way you used to. There are many cognitive aspects that are controlled by the brain. And so some of the ones that are impacted by brain injury may be memory, focus and attention that wasn't a problem before, information processing, word finding. And as you can see with the model of the brain here, there are different areas of the brain that control different parts, different functions. And a lot of times when the brain is injured in a particular area, or maybe we're not exactly sure where it was injured, but there's evidence that it was injured in one of these areas that controls some of the different things we're struggling with. Emotional changes might be those that are either confusing, unexpected. It might be assumed that it's not the brain injury, but maybe the circumstances that are causing the emotion. But some of the symptoms might be anger outbursts that you really weren't having before, or that your loved one wasn't having before. Feeling easily overwhelmed, overly tearful, sometimes feeling like your emotions are just out of your control, having frustration, intolerance, and not feeling like you can manage the same situations that you were able to manage before. Changes in roles and responsibilities. Maybe you were the person, or your loved one was the person who controlled the finances or who managed the finances in the home, or had a particular role at work. And that is something that's changed. Either it's been handed off or it's a loss. It's something that cannot, at least currently, be done, or maybe can no longer be done. And so that's a change that maybe you didn't expect to happen in your life, and you thought you would go back to your job, or you thought that you would be able to continue a role. Loss of confidence is another possible response to having this type of role responsibility or responsibility taken away. Change in relationships. I hear this often from clients and caregivers as well, that relationships with either friends or coworkers or others who are support may change due to a number of things that have changed since brain injury. Cognitive challenges may be one of them. Problems with short-term memory may be another. For caregivers, it may be that your caregiving is taking up all of your time. And so it changes how often or whether or not you can interact with other people. I'm going to turn it over to Brittany for a self-care break.
Okay. And so with the discussion about the changes, that can be heavy, and you may be experiencing that in a different way, maybe showing up for you in a different way. And so what we're going to do is just a very simple self-care break, and we're going to use breath as a way to ground and center ourselves. And so what I would ask each participant to do or viewer to do, is to sit comfortably in a seat and also plant your feet on the floor. You can lay your hands in your lap or place them across your chest, what feels comfortable to you. And then I'm going to ask you to soften your gaze or close your eyes. Again, whatever feels the most comfortable. And then on my count, I'm going to guide you through the 4-count breath. So we're going to inhale on a 4 count, and I will paste that out for you all. Then we're going to hold on a 4 count. Again, I'll paste that, and exhale on a 4 count. And so we'll do that cycle 1 to 2 times. All right. On the count of 3. So again, softening your gaze or closing your eyes. On the count of 3, we're going to inhale. 1, 2, 3. Inhale. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Very good. And you can allow your breath to return to normal. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. And you can use that pacing in breathing again, just to center and ground yourself right where you are.
Thanks, Brittany. And I meant to share at the beginning that we are going to be doing self-care breaks throughout, partially because of the content, and it can be difficult to recognize some of these symptoms post-brain injury, but also to demonstrate for you what you can do when you are on your own and trying to kind of take a moment away from all the stress. So also, one of the things that happens often after brain injury that's life-changing is grief. And how do we know we're grieving? The symptoms may be similar to the loss of a loved one or how we grieve after someone dies, but they're also a little different and harder to define at times. So I'm going to describe a few of the symptoms that may signify that you're grieving. One is their category is emotional and spiritual, and crying is kind of one that we would probably think about. Questioning beliefs, worry, frustration, and guilt. And all of these are symptoms of grief in general, but they apply a little bit differently to brain injury. Sometimes whatever the cause was or circumstances were around the brain injury can cause guilt, or this isn't listed here, but maybe anger or resentment toward whoever caused the injury. Or if it was an injury that couldn't be prevented or predicted, or was an acquired injury that wasn't a result of an accident or something that you feel like could have been prevented, it's kind of a questioning, why me? Maybe some frustration with the fact that you're in the situation at all. Social isolation can be for many reasons, but if it's not typically what you would do, if you would typically be all in and wanting to join the party or wanting to connect with friends, and you are suddenly feeling, or after brain injury, whether you're a caregiver or a survivor of brain injury, feeling like you just don't want to socialize, you just don't feel up to being around people, and you're isolating more than usual. It might not be physical isolation. It might be that you're not talking. You're keeping a lot of your thoughts to yourself. You're not processing it with anyone. You're maybe avoiding certain situations or relationships. Physical aches and pains can sometimes be confused with maybe this is a physical response, but it can be a grief response. It is physical, but the cause behind it isn't necessarily medical or physical. It's actually a grief response. We carry a lot of our stress in our bodies, including grief. And so maybe frequent headaches or fatigue or loss of appetite, difficulty sleeping, aches and pains. Difficulty sleeping can be a direct symptom of injury to the brain, but it can also be a grief symptom. So it does get a little bit difficult to tease out. Fatigue, loss of appetite, these can also be symptoms of depression, but they can be symptoms of grief that need to be processed through, and will improve over time after some of that processing is done. So I'm going to go through some of the stages of grief that we've probably all heard of. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross laid these out years and years ago, and they are not linear. We don't necessarily go through them in a particular order, but we do go through them even when we have the person still with us, even when you're still here, but there's been a change. And so there's a grieving process to that loss that involves the same stages of grief that you would go through if someone died. So denial is normal. It's a natural defense mechanism. It helps us in situations where we just really need to be able to do something and move forward. And so we live in that denial sometimes for a period, and that's a normal reaction. We don't want to acknowledge the reality of the situation. It feels like if we do that, we won't have hope. And so that's one stage of grief. It can be a result of shock or fear and not being able to face that at that point. Here's the anger piece, and I liked this acronym. It's not necessarily losing your temper or yelling. It might just be you're grumpy, you feel negative all the time or easily annoyed. That may be really anger. It's necessary. It's something we all have to go through. Some people don't go through it in the same way. Maybe they get through this stage quickly, but it's a very normal part of the process to feel angry, irritated, frustrated after something like this happens. Probably heard of bargaining, and this is kind of making yourself believe that you can somehow avoid grief by negotiating through, well, maybe I should try this, or what if I did this? Maybe then the symptoms would go away, or this situation would change. And the struggle to find meaning is underlying the need to bargain. Depression is also a normal response to grief. It's not pleasant. No one wants to feel that way. But when we face the reality and we start to recognize this is continuing, this is something that's going to take some time. Depending on what stage you're in, you may realize that some of the damage is long lasting or chronic. And that can really result in some overwhelming feelings of helplessness and kind of feeling empty and overwhelmed. And sometimes you might feel a sense of anger, which can be a symptom of depression as well, about the situation. And that can be very lead to kind of a sense of, again, helplessness and feeling numb or wanting to withdraw. We all want to get to this stage in any grieving process, but it can be, again, not linear. You can go back and forth. You may accept some things and not others. And hopefully at some point you will come to an acceptance, not that you like or want things to stay the way they are necessarily, but you accept the way they are. Emotions begin to stabilize. You start to come to terms with the new reality. And you start moving forward and making new plans and explore, okay, if this is our reality, what are our options? What do we have a choice about? This is an additional stage of grief. There's a book cover there for finding meaning. This is where this concept came from with David Kessler, who was friends with Elizabeth Kubler-Ross and got her blessing to add this as the 6th stage of grief. And I mentioned finding meaning under bargaining. You know, underneath it all, we want to figure out, what does this mean now? How can I make meaning out of a tragedy, out of what happened? And so finding meaning might involve asking some of these types of questions. What might not have happened if this hadn't happened? What group of people might you not have been connected with? What opportunity might you not have had, or person might you not have met had this situation no one would choose, but it happened? Had it not happened, what might you not have had the opportunity to do? What have you learned? What have you gained? And for some people, finding meaning means giving back, warning others, drumming up awareness so that, you know, there is a better understanding of brain injury. In this book, there was also a workshop called Finding Meaning. And this gentleman who wrote it actually did lose someone to death, but he also talks about in this book other kinds of loss that aren't necessarily death. They're a result of a medical issue, a disability, and various other types of loss. Another self-care break by Brittany.
All righty. So what we're going to do for this self-care break is we're just going to practice some basic grounding, and we're going to go through the senses, and this is called senses grounding. And we're going to do a count of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And so again, seated in a comfortable position, or you can be standing, whatever is most comfortable for you. And I'm just going to walk you through your senses, and it's just going to help us open up with an awareness of where we are in our present location. As Joy was also mentioning, just opening ourselves up to our present reality, what's happening in the moment. And grounding can be helpful for us to help us disconnect from an overwhelming feeling or thought, just reminding us to come back into the present. So we're going to start with you all taking a quick scan around your surroundings, taking a nice inhale and exhale. And I want you to look for 5 things that you can see. And you just name them to yourself. What are 5 things that you can see? 4 things that you can hear. 3 things that you can touch or feel. 2 things that you can smell. 1 thing that you can taste. Now, another inhale and exhale. Very good. And that, again, just simple grounding exercise. You can put the senses in any order that you like, but just another way to help you with reconnecting to the present moment.
Thanks, Brittany. Right, and I'm gonna let Brittany take over.
All righty, sounds good. And so now we're going to shift a little bit again and look at some tips for us for moving through recovery. Let's see if I'm able to shift us. Yes, okay. All righty. So for this part, again, I looked up some pet peeves that survivors have shared related to brain injury. And let me see if I can go back a slide. Okay, perfect. And so what I want you to do, I'm going to read this out to you all. I just want you to just kind of close your eyes and think about, have you ever said these things, a combination, or just kind of, again, felt this way? So I'll list out and name some of the pet peeves. 1, I get tired easily. I'm not able to do the job I had before my injury. I forget what others say to me. I'm not able to drive. It takes me longer to do things now. People have trouble understanding my speech. And that is not an exhaustive or exclusive list, but again, just some things that come up for people. So now, with you opening your eyes, I want you to think about, is that something that resonates with you? Is that something that you may even still be saying today? And so with even if you have found yourself saying that or feeling that way, again, it's not right, it's not wrong, it simply is. And it's okay. And something that we're going to talk about is, again, validating and making space for whatever emotions come up for you as you're on your journey. And so also sharing some tips that survivors of brain injury have shared to, again, empower and encourage others that are on this journey. And so just advice for living well after brain injury. And one of the greater takeaways that I often hear from clients that I work with, and also too just through preparing this presentation, was that practice of gratitude and not underestimating gratitude. And so it's the practice of appreciating each moment, celebrating wins, acknowledging losses, validating all the emotions in between, recognizing that each day presents us a new opportunity to try again, discover something new, and to be curious versus critical of ourselves and our progress. Additional advice for living well after brain injury is, again, a takeaway is that not to underestimate, again, your persistence and just that idea of meeting yourself where you are. So by acknowledging both strengths and weaknesses, we can set realistic goals and manage expectations with regards to our own individual health and recovery journeys. So when you meet yourself where you are each day, you're more open to asking for help when needed, practicing self-care, and connecting with community, whether that be through peer or professional support. And so again, just some basic tips for moving through recovery. Again, learning about your brain injury symptoms. So really educating yourself. What does it look like? How is it showing up for me? And just having that understanding, being able to also to normalize your experience, finding language is very helpful and validating when moving through recovery. Also, too, again, going back to that notion about identifying your post-injury strengths as well as weaknesses. Weakness is not a negative, it's not a bad thing. Just recognizing that, okay, there's an area that I may need additional support in, and it's important to acknowledge that so that way you're more open to seeking out that support, right? Nothing to be ashamed of. Another tip, maintaining hope. Just also to having something that you're looking forward to, or, again, setting those goals, something that you have to work toward that can help you with, again, getting up each day, even when it is heavy and even when it is hard. Seeking help from brain injury providers, that's another one. Just connecting, helping, adding professional supports onto your community team. And also to allowing yourself to go through that grief process. Very important, because the only way to the other side is through it. So giving yourself permission to, accept and grieve your losses. And then the last one on this slide says to stay positive and pat yourself on the back. I don't think we do enough of, again, just learning how to encourage ourselves. So again, showing that compassion towards yourself, encouraging yourself, learning how to become your own cheerleader, and celebrating the small steps, the small wins, super important. Additional tips, and this is speaking more so towards my caregivers, again, managing expectations, right? Adopting realistic expectations, not being afraid to ask for help from family or friends, becoming a teacher yourself, a brain injury, again, not just educating yourself, but also to sharing information with other folks as well. And taking care of yourself, that's super important. So again, seeking out respite, or just not burning yourself out, recognizing your own limitations, right? Again, that's that acceptance of your own strengths when it comes to caretaking, as well as weaknesses. Yeah, you do need sleep, right? And so those types of things. So thinking about that and what that means for you. And also too, not feeling guilty with, again, just doing what you can and allowing that to be enough. So again, do what you can, honor what you are able to do, and not feeling guilty about it. And something to remember is that, again, recovery is a journey, not a destination. And so this is your recovery journey. It's going to be, your path is going to be your own, but don't allow that to stop you from building a community to accompany you on the journey. So just remember that, again, symptoms as it relates to recovery rates, they differ from person to person. Symptoms are part physical, cognitive, emotional, and behavioral. So there's a combination of things that could come up for you. And all the feelings that come up for you, they're valid, whether it be anger, whether it be sadness, whether it be confusion, whether, again, you just feel at times you're in a mixing bowl, it's valid. Seek support, continue to talk about it, seek education, and also to leaning into the community to help you with cultivating those skills of gratitude to employ as you are on this journey. And another tip, again, just for caregivers, again, going back to the notion that also too, for you, all of your feelings are 100% valid. And just know too, again, managing those expectations, your relationship will change, right? And so learning how to meet that loved one where they are. And also too, what is it like to, in a sense, get to know this person in front of me, right? And again, stepping away from comparisons and just being open to your present reality. Super important. Recognizing your limitations. Again, just remembering that you too are not immune to burning out. And so recognizing when you need help, when you need support, setting healthy boundaries so that way you can continue to meet your loved one where they are, and also to showing up for yourself. So that's important too, as you are on this road to recovery, or alongside your loved one on their journey towards recovery. And then to wrap up this, I am going to leave you all with another prompt again, and we're going to use breath to center ourselves. So thinking about what's come up for you as we're concluding this workshop, some of the things that were touched on, what's resonated with you, where you feel it, again, how it's showing up for you. And so for this one, I'm gonna have you sit or stand comfortably in a quiet place. You can soften your gaze or close your eyes. And I'm gonna read out a prompt to you. Again, it simply says, I am here. While sitting or standing and with your eyes closed, I want you, on your inhale, as you're breathing in, think to yourself, I am. As you exhale, think here. Repeat this for a few minutes. I am here. I am here. Notice how your mind and spirit respond to this simple declaration. Return to this practice during the day, with your eyes open as needed to affirm your place in this world.
Thanks, Brittany. So we're not going to have discussion in an asynchronous workshop, but if you do have questions about any of these things and you want to talk to one of us, there is a slide. I think, Brittany, you're going to have to forward to that next slide, that has our number and our website with more information about us. Brittany and I are the counseling, or with the counseling department at Brain Injury Services. We have many other services. And if you are interested in accessing us, you can call the main number. We have extensions off of that number, or you can send a message to our main email. I think there's a contact form on our website. If you want to talk to somebody, you can certainly reach us that way. We are happy to help. Thank you for joining us, and we hope this information was very helpful.